People love talking about passive income, especially on YouTube and the internet. Everyone wants passive income. The idea that you can make income and do fuck all is unbelievably compelling.
Sign me up.
Like, I would like some passive income. What is the reality of this? Because there's a real obsession with figuring out ways to make passive income. I want to earn money when I sleep. What is the reality of that? Is that a thing? Is that possible? Is that something I should be aiming at?
You should aim at that once you have $1 million in your bank account. Before you have $1 million, don't even think about passive income. You have no asset to actually earn passive income off of. And your time is much better spent learning how do you get your first $1 million than it is through passive income and thinking how you're going to earn a percentage on the principal that you've invested. If you make $60,000 a year, medium wage, United States of America, if you make $60,000 a year, 8% on that isn't going to get you to financial freedom. So don't figure out how to crack 8% to maybe I'm going to get 15% returns because the principal is still so small. The 60,000 is so small. What do you have to do? Actually learn, how do I make my income 160,000? But what's wild once people learn how to do this, and the skill of learning is like, it's the greatest drug on planet Earth because you learn how to do something and you become competent in it. And as soon as you get there, you're like, oh my gosh, if that's all it took for these people that I used to think were special to earn an additional 100,000. And now all I have to do is do that same process again to go from where I'm at to be able to earn 1.6 million, do a 10X, sign me up because you get this confidence from learning how to do things. And so passive income is great at a certain stage of life and at a certain stage of financial protection, but it is financial protection. It is not for the people who are saying, I want to go build something, I want to grow something, I want to create something. It is to me almost the opposite of survival, actually. It's your backup plan. It's your rainy day fund in case shit hits the fan. And I'm not opposed to having a backup plan. It's good to have a backup plan. But 99% of your time should be focused on how do I make the first plan go frickin' right and do everything I can today to control plan A.
You talked about acquiring skills being the key thing there. Obviously, the world is changing quickly because of AI and all the skills that a lot of people once acquired in university, accountants, lawyers, podcasters, I guess. Our skills are quickly being replaced by intelligent machines and systems that can now do what we do. And when you look around the corner at what's going on in robotics, I think NEO, the robotics company this week, put on sale their first humanoid robot, which can move through the physical environment and do things. And when I combine these two things, I can combine intelligence with the ability to manipulate the physical environment. I go, where are humans gonna be in all this? Because it is conceivable, it's perfectly conceivable to me that much of what we employ people to do these days will be redundant in the near future. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that there won't be new jobs, but it's a difficult time to be investing heavily in any particular skill set. Well, some skill sets because they're becoming invalid in no time at all. Like even as a writer, so like I've written 2 books and I enjoy the process of writing. I consider it to be one of my edges. I was like, I'm quite good at writing, so that's useful. You can build a personal brand, you can send good emails, you can convince people, investors, whatever it might be. But even now, I'm like, fuck it, everyone's got like AI now, ChatGPT, so they can just produce AI slop and they can literally just say, write it like Stephen or write it like Natalie. So the edges are going. What is the edge of the future in your view? What is the edge? What is the skill I should double down on that the robots and AI aren't going to steal from me?
I think the only skill that we can actually double down on in a world of AI is the skill of learning and adapting, because we cannot predict what the world is going to look like in 2040. We do not know what robots are or aren't going to be capable of. I'm not as bullish on this. I watched Elon have a interview over the weekend about his take on AI, and he said that it's a supersonic tsunami, in which he proceeded to explain that supersonic is traveling at the speed of sound, and a tsunami is a wall of water. And so if you think about that being AI, it's coming, it's here, it's fast. And of course, he benefits from everybody believing all of those things with all of the companies. And I am a pro Elon person. I love what he has built. I love his mind. But I think that we're further away than people think. but it is still coming. And so the only hedge that somebody can have is the ability to adapt and learn. And what AI should be used for with every individual is the ability to learn. Acknowledge what you don't know. That is the greatest strength somebody has. Really be comfortable saying, I do not know how to read a P&L. I don't know how to read this legal contract. I don't know anything about AI. And what I've heard an LLM, I don't really know what it is, or agentic, what's the difference? And be able to convince yourself why that is the most important skill for you to push past that barrier of learning something new that is so uncomfortable because the names are new and you feel like a freaking idiot. And then you think everybody is smarter than you and that you're just some fraud. To push back on that and to have some resilience through it, to say, I'm going to adapt through this. I'm going to get to the other side and learn so that I concretely can have confidence that I can change in any environment based off of what's needed of me in that environment. And I will add value to that environment regardless of whatever the external circumstances are. That is the only choice. There is no alternative choice.
Are you scared about AI?
I'm not scared at all. I'm pumped. As you can tell, I'm really excited because I used to feel dumb. I used to feel like there were things that these smart people knew that I didn't know. And my entire outlook on life changed a handful of years ago when this got launched, because AI has taught me in 2 years what I would have had to go to school for and would have had to get a degree in, still to just find out that most people who went to school for those things and had degrees in them missed something critical and important. And so for me, and I think people like me, and I don't think there's anything particularly special about who I categorize as people like me, it is a unprecedented time to lean into this reference of information that can specifically tutor you on what you don't know, to actually equip you. We've never had this opportunity before, and it's not specific to you with your gender or your race or your age. It's accessible. And so I'm beyond excited, because anything that comes up that's like, oh, this just changed the whole dynamic of the business. Guess what? I have AI to help me understand that and to help me get whatever skill I need in this new world. Same thing that people 100 years ago had to do. Same thing that 2,000 years ago people had to do. They just didn't actually have a tool to help them understand what was happening, to then learn what needed to happen from them, whatever they had misunderstoods are, in order to actually get to the other side with real skills.
Natalie, what do you think is the most important thing we haven't talked about that we should have talked about as it relates to what you know about who my audience are and what they're interested in?
I think this is a connected subject, but I would want anybody in the audience, whether you make $60,000 a year, $1 million a year, $100 million a year, to actually have the belief in themselves that they can learn anything that they want to know, and that there isn't actually a barrier there that exists. Because if I could get people to really believe that, their entire life would change due to the access that they have today, due to the tools that they have today. And so taking that confidence that I can walk into any room with any big shot, with anybody who knows something about a particular subject matter that I know nothing about, and feel totally comfortable being in that environment, because you can prep yourself, you can learn about it, and life is so beautiful because you get those experiences and you don't have to be scared of them. You can learn and you can understand, and there's nothing that's wrong with you to where you can't, and there's no special privilege or special characteristics that somebody has that you don't have, in that you can learn anything.
Did you used to think there were special characteristics or some kind of genetic genius gene that these people at the very top had, and how did that change once you were in rooms with those people?
Of course, I thought that there was some genius button that somebody clicked at birth before coming out of the womb, where they just got to be special and they got to understand things. I really struggled growing up with remembering numbers. Numbers were so challenging. I would just reverse the numbers and then they wouldn't stick in my brain. And I thought I was stupid for so much of my life. And for anybody who also struggles with that, what you would come to find out, being around lots of people, successful or unsuccessful people, is everybody has that thing. So the faster that you can attack it and get yourself comfortable with numbers, what I realized is like that was just a story I told myself, because had I ever spent an afternoon on a Sunday with my extra time actually trying to get better at remembering numbers? No, I hadn't. I just used it as an excuse. And successful people just limit the amount of excuses that they allow themselves to believe for why they aren't successful. They take the limitation that they have, and either they so over-index in the strength and they ignore that, or they realize that that limitation is actually at a point where it is limiting them. So they have to attack it and take the time to get better and shore up that area to then be able to springboard from there.
There's also, I guess, another layer to this, which is men tend to rate their own performance higher than women do, even when their actual performance is equal. And there's a bunch of different studies that cite this. There's one famous study that people always talk about, which might be refuted now, but it said that men apply for a job when they meet 60% of the listed qualifications, while women only apply when they meet 100% of the listed qualifications, which in part, as it relates to top jobs in Europe, people think that this is part of the reason why men are more likely to be in full-time top jobs, because that overconfidence means they're more likely to apply and therefore more likely to, convince other people and more likely to get the job. So there seems to be a difference in genders in terms of the need to feel ready and the need to feel qualified.
That's so real to me.
Yeah.
That is so real to me. I get to work with people every day, and I will have a personal, professional, and financial goal conversation with team members who are in the exact same role. Let's say they're an account manager. One will be a female, one will be a male. The woman is like a rock star. The clients love her, and she's so good, and she just has like this little like magical spark. So I'll be sitting with them with their personal, professional, and financial goal conversation, and the woman will say, "Oh, I'd like to go from making $80,000 a year to maybe in a year from now making $90,000." And the next hour, I will have a conversation with a guy who is not as performant as she is. And he will say, "Yeah, I'm making $80,000 a year. Think in the next 3 years, I should be up to 200, 250. I've had this happen over and over and over. So I watch this in real time. And my go-to in that is to sit down with the girl and to say, I want you to imagine what your life is going to look like in 3 years from now. So if you're 35 years old, you're going to be 38 years old. What does life look like? Who are you spending time with? How much money are you making? Have you traveled? Do you have a spouse? Do you have kids? Like, what does life look like? And what I want you to do, is if you don't have an account already, is I want you to get hooked up with Pinterest, and you are going to create a board, and you are just going to go through all of these incredible things that you could have in your life that you actually want. Not the stupid things, like the things that you're like, if my life could include that, it would change my life. I would love to have that life. For me, that would have been full sequin suit. Because if you can't do that, you're of course going to be stunted in what you're going to do in order to get there. If it was a man who was struggling with that, though, I'd do the exact same thing. That to me is the real job of a leader, is to inspire people enough, not about who you are and all of your accomplishments, but to actually have them see that they could have the life that they want through the work that they do every single day, and tying those two things together and being ruthlessly honest with them when they do things that hold them back and remove things that are in their way.
Natalie, we have a closing tradition where the last guest leaves a question for the next, not knowing who they're leaving it for. And the question left for you is a fairly well-known question, actually. It is, what would you do if you knew you would not fail?
If I knew that I wasn't going to fail, I would just I'd fix world hunger and I'd fix all of these things. But short of thinking that I could solve those particular problems, it's selfish to not have those goals and dreams. I just think for my actual life today, I really believe and preach, and to my core, I feel act out that I take massive action towards goals that do seem unbelievable or unreal to me. And right now, the set of goals that I have are the things that I'm very confident that I'm not going to fail at. And I'm spending time doing those things in order to get myself as close as possible to the woman that I want to become. And I could change my mind in a handful of months or a handful of years once I've achieved those things. But I guess I already actually do think that I'm living my life short of solving world hunger and like world peace, that I'm doing everything that I know how to do to make an impact on the world.
I noticed that, I've had a bunch of conversations on this show with people like Evie Pomporis, who is the Secret Service agent, and you have a lot of similarities to her. I think because of the directness in which you speak. And I think part of the resonance is people want to know how to be taken seriously in this world. Mm-hmm. And I think they look at you and see someone who is like them in many ways, or at least how they aspire to be, but is taken seriously in a world that is often hard to be taken seriously in, especially as a woman. In male-dominated environments, especially things like the finance industry and investment industry, it's hard to be taken seriously. It's hard to be respected. And so I think people have a deep sense that they are being diminished, they are like misunderstood, they're not being heard. And so when they hear someone that speaks so clearly and with such conviction as you, they want to learn how to do it. Is there anything in that regard that we've left off? Because I was on your YouTube channel and I was looking at some of your recent videos, and one of the recent videos that has been incredibly resonant to people is this exact point, which is the 1% secrets to make anyone respect you instantly. Is there anything within the subject of that video? And I was looking at the comment section. It was a lot of people talking about how they feel someone has disrespected them, or that they feel they've been ignored or not heard. Is there anything you'd say to those people?
Being looked down upon, being not taken seriously is actually your superpower. And you have to convert the energy of that frustration into what are you going to do in that environment next time to be taken seriously. I went to a charity event, was about a decade ago now, and I remember being mortified because I was in this career pivot where I was making the decision to work with Brandon and
Your husband.
My husband, yeah. And the proverbial question of like, well, what do you do? Came around to me, and I fumbled the question. And for the rest of that night, and it was actually a charity trip, the person just didn't take me seriously. And they were somebody that I wanted to respect me. And I was so pissed off at myself that I messed it up, that I hadn't created something at 22 years old that was more impressive, that they would take me seriously. And so I made it my mission between that point and the next year when we would go on that trip for them to take me seriously. And I had to look at, what do I have to do? What do I have to create in order for somebody to take a 24-year-old seriously?
What did you have to do and create?
Well, I launched a podcast, and I had to work on this communication skill because I was terrified to communicate. I used to not be able to communicate like this. I had a horrifying experience when I was in my early 20s where I was supposed to present this new leadership program that was being rolled out at this organization. And I was nervous ahead of time, but was fairly confident in the material that I was presenting. And I walked up to the front of the room, and I was the first person to speak. It was 8:00 in the morning, and I got through 5 minutes of my hour-long presentation. I turned around to the presentation screen to point out something and turned back to the audience. And in that moment, I was instantly petrified. The nerves took over every fiber of my body. I could not control what I was saying. My thoughts and my words did not connect. And I proceeded to give the rest of my presentation that was supposed to take an additional 55 minutes in 7. And then I sat at the front of the room while everyone around me was talking about all the different components of the things I was supposed to be highlighting because I just couldn't articulate them. And from that point, for about 4 years, I was unable to have a conversation with people that had a larger group than 4 or 5 because this disconnect for me happened and this anxiousness took place. And I had to work on this skill to learn how to communicate. And so I launched a podcast, and the only topic that I felt comfortable talking about at that point, I didn't have some business expertise. I wasn't naive enough to think that somebody was going to listen to me at the wise age of 23 or 24, my early 20s, and how to run a business. So what did I know at that point? And what was a problem that I was seeing? Well, I was actually around a group of people who were in age gap relationships and having all of these conversations in secret, but wouldn't publicly talk about it. And so I started a podcast where I was talking about what it's like being a third marriage and being a stepmom, and how did we tell our parents, and what are tools to navigate something that feels really crippling and almost embarrassing to somebody who is a high performer. And I proceeded to have that podcast every single week. And I made it my mission that year to make a toast at every single meal that made sense for me to make a toast at, so that I worked out this skill of communicating. And working out the skill of communicating is what allowed me to go from being in a room where I couldn't trust myself to even introduce what I do, to showing up the next year and having made progress on my communication and saying, hey, I know that you didn't take me very seriously last year, but this year, I would never say it like this, but this year I've built this cool thing, and I actually have this blog that has thousands of readers every single month that is generating this revenue. And you, Mr. Old Man, might not have taken me seriously, but I could probably help you in your business do the same thing, because I know that you don't know anything about this. So I gained a skill in that process and was able to talk about the skill that I knew was my angle.
The top comment on that video is, being nice destroyed my life.
I can understand. Of course it did.
The second comment is, a friend to all is a friend to none.
People really resonate with the topic of being liked versus being respected. And people give up their goals in order to be liked, and they give up what they believe that they can actually accomplish, and thinking that it's okay to go all in on themselves in order to be liked. And so that message, I know, really resonated with people, because I start out the video by talking about the difference between respect and being liked, and really making that a choice. And it's an active choice, not a passive thing that just happens.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.